Good morning, students. We were discussing about the Battle of Plassey, and towards the Battle of Plassey, we saw Robert Clive declared, "We must indeed become Nawabs ourselves," and that is how the East India Company or the members of East India Company took charge and they became Nawabs themselves. And finally, in 1765, the Mughal emperor appointed the company as the Diwan of the provinces of Bengal. The Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue resources of Bengal, and this solved a major problem that the company had earlier faced. From the early 18th century, its trade with India had expanded, but it had to buy most of the goods in India with exchange of gold and silver imported from Britain. This was because at this time Britain had no goods to sell in India. So the outflow of gold from Britain slowed after the Battle of Plassey and entirely stopped after the assumption of Diwani. Now revenues from India could finance company expenses. These revenues could be used to purchase cotton and silk textiles in India, maintain company troops, and meet the cost of building the company fort and offices at Calcutta. So this we had discussed earlier. Today we are going to see company officials become nabobs or nawabs. What did it mean to be nawabs? It meant, of course, that the company acquired more power and authority, but it also meant something else. Each company servant began to have visions of living like nawabs. You see, each company servant, each official or employee of the company, East India Company, they began to see themselves as the Nawab of Bengal or Nawab of the country. Each person, each employee of the company, East India Company, now they are envisioning themselves, they are imagining themselves to be the Nawab, and that is how it progressed. It went farther. After the Battle of Plassey, the actual Nawabs of the Bengal were forced to give land and vast sums of money as personal gifts to company officials. See, after the Battle of Plassey, actual Nawabs of Bengal were removed. They were removed and they were forced to give land and vast sum of money, huge amount of money as a personal gifts to company employees, to company officials. Robert Clive himself amassed a fortune in India. He himself collected a huge amount of money in India. He amassed or assembled huge amount of money in India. He had come to Madras, now Chennai, from England in 1743 at the age of 18. When in 1767 he left India, his Indian fortune was worth 401.102 pound in Britain currency, 401.102 pound in Indian currency. This would be 3.88 pound sterling. Interestingly, when he was appointed governor of Bengal in 1764, he was asked to remove corruption in company administration, but he was himself cross-examined in 1772 by the British Parliament, which was suspicious of his vast wealth. Although he was acquitted, removed from the post of Nawab, he committed suicide in 1774. So here you see, he was asked to remove corruption in the company administration, but he was himself cross-examined in 1772 by the British Parliament, which was suspecting to have a huge amount of vast wealth. He was being suspected to had a huge amount of vast wealth, and when he was cross-examined in 1772, from his possession a huge amount of wealth was collected as 401.102 in British pound. In Indian currency, this is okay. So 401.102 pound sterling in British currency, 401.102 pound sterling in British currency, that is 41,430.63 in Indian rupee. 41,430.63 in Indian rupee. So he was acquitted from his post, he was removed from his post, and later he committed suicide in 1774. However, not all company officials succeeded in making money like Robert Clive. Not all company officials succeeded or became rich like Robert Clive in making money. Many died an early death in India due to disease and war, and it would not be right to regard all of them as corrupt and dishonest. So many of the officials, they didn't become or didn't succeed like Robert Clive in making money, in corrupting money, because many of them died in the war and many of them suffered from the disease, from the illness, and so all of them cannot be called as dishonest or a corrupt officials. Many of them came from humble backgrounds, good family, and their uppermost desire was to earn enough in India. Many of them, as I said, came from the humble family, from the good family, and the governors, the general governors, and the Nawabs who were appointed, generals who were appointed by the British, by East India Company to India. So many of them were humble background, from the humble background family, and their only desire, only will or uppermost desire, hope was to earn enough in India, only to earn prestige, dignity, and that was only their hope or desire, not to loot the money, not to hoard the money or collect the money like Robert Clive. But they were also good people. Only earn enough in India and return to Britain and lead a comfortable life. So as mentioned here, some of them were good people. Only they wanted to earn respect, honor and prestige and return back to Britain and lead a comfortable life and good life. Those who managed to return with wealth led a flashy luxurious lives. All those who managed to collect money, assemble money from India and return back to Britain, they led a flashy, luxurious or extravagant life and flaunted their richness and spent their richness, wealth lavishly, extravagantly, wasting the money and wealth. They were called nabobs, an anglicized version of the Indian word nawab. They were often seen as upstarts and social climbers in British society and were ridiculed or made fun in plays and cartoons. So some of the nawabs or anglicized words as a nawab. In India we call it as a nawab, and it is anglicized word as a nawab. So these people were upstarts. They were the beginners and social climbers in British society, and they were ridiculed, made fun of, or joke of, or they were laughed at. They were laughed at by the plays and cartoons. In the next class we will discuss about study about company rule expands.